Welcome to this introduction to the ICD FlexFit Multifocal. This video is meant to describe the many options available on this scleral lens for your presbyopic patients. The ICD FlexFit was developed by the CAT Design Group and is licensed globally, but it is exclusively manufactured and distributed by Precision and Cardinal throughout Canada. My name is Randy Kojima. As you would expect, a large component of the scleral patients we fit today are presbyopes, and being able to offer an option is important. It's helpful to know that the ICD FlexFit is available in a multifocal, so we can help some of these patients. We're able to change lives with scleral lenses every day, and the ICD FlexFit is one of those products that makes it possible. The fitting set provides the 14.8 millimeter diameter lens for lower degrees of asymmetry, smaller fissure sizes, and smaller corneas. However, more commonly, the larger 16.3 diameter lens is used for the high amounts of asymmetry or more complicated conditions that we face. A wide range of multifocal options are provided for the 14.8, the 16.3, and all diameters of the ICD FlexFit, as well as it's available on the front torics and quadrant-specific designs. Although it's a complex lens design, there are very simple, logical, and straightforward fitting considerations for the practitioner. One of the principal fitting goals is to center the lenses, place the multifocal optics over the pupil. The second consideration is to ensure the full range of multifocality is delivered within the diameter of the pupil. Then finally, if the optic axis of the lens and the visual axis of the patient do not line up, then use displaced multifocal optics to center those optics over the pupil and the visual axis. With these simple considerations in mind, you can approach the presbyopic fitting of virtually any patient in the ICD FlexFit multifocal lens. The most common configuration of the ICD FlexFit multifocal is a distance center with intermediate and near towards the periphery. With this construction, it allows you control over the distance center width, the intermediate zone width, as well as the near power diameter. Therefore, a high level of customization can be provided for each eye and each patient's visual needs. The lens is also available in a near center construction as well. The near center allows the same wide range of customization as the distance center option, where the width of the near center diameter is controllable, as well as the intermediate, as well as the distance zone diameter. The ICD FlexFit multifocal allows practitioners a wide range of customization, with the ability to create a distance center or a near center and control all of the zones of the lens. The ICD FlexFit multifocal really provides the flexibility and customization that you need for the wide range of patients that we see. Additionally, this powerful lens can be ordered with displaced multifocal optics, which we'll discuss later in this video. In terms of parameter availability, the distance power is available from -40 to +30. The cylinder up to -5 diopters in quarter diopter steps, and the add is available from +1/4 to +5 diopters in near magnification. Let's discuss the customization of each zone in greater detail. Each ICD FlexFit multifocal has distinct distance, intermediate, and near zones, each one controllable in its width and magnitude of power. The distance zone diameter can be altered, specific for each patient's need. The ability to control the distance, intermediate, and near zone diameters is important because we know the pupil size varies based on age and patient. 2 millimeters is the recommended distance zone diameter that you should start with. The near zone diameter can also be controlled to influence the width of the plus zone as well as the magnitude of plus that's provided to the patient. It's important to build the ICD FlexFit Multifocal with the near zone diameter within the measured diameter of the pupil. This ensures the full multifocality is provided to the patient within their specific pupil diameter. One of the typical constructions of multifocal lenses is to provide aspheric optics, which really creates an exponential increase in multifocality toward the periphery. This can induce a high amount of aberrations. The ICD FlexFit Multifocal lens was constructed to avoid ramping up the aberrations to a degree that might affect the quality of vision. The way the lens is built, it's constructed to provide the distance required, the add power at the pupil, but no more than an additional 1 diopter of plus as you head toward the optic zone of the lens. One of the ways to be successful in the ICD FlexFit Multifocal lens is to build the distance power required at the diameter appropriate for the patient, provide a full range of intermediate powers, then create the add at the pupil diameter so the patient has all the focal distances required. The design also incorporates that additional 1 diopter of plus beyond the near zone diameter, which can contribute to additional magnification without increasing the aberrations exponentially for the patient. The customization of the ICD FlexFit Multifocal lens provides you control of the intermediate zone width, although it's more indirectly controlled, so let's explain what that means. When you alter the distance zone diameter, that's going to affect the intermediate zone width. If we make 3 different lenses with the same pupil size, but 3 different distance zone widths, you can see how that yellow intermediate zone gets wider and wider as you go to a smaller and smaller distance zone diameter. Conversely, as we go to a larger distance zone diameter, that intermediate zone gets a little more narrow. We can also influence the intermediate zone by altering the pupil zone size. As we decrease the pupil zone size, the intermediate zone narrows. As we increase the pupil size, the intermediate zone widens. The ICD FlexFit Multifocal offers an exceptional level of control of the various zones of the lens. The distance zone can be increased or decreased. The intermediate zone is allowed the same level of customization. And finally, the near zone can be controlled to influence magnification. The ICD FlexFit Multifocal allows you comprehensive control of the distance, the intermediate, and the near zones of the lens to create specific optics for each patient and each eye. As we discussed earlier, the standard construction is the distance center lens, but the ICD FlexFit Multifocal can also be created as a near center multifocal with distance in the periphery. This allows for flexibility in the fitting protocol. For instance, a distance center lens could be used in the dominant eye with the near center lens for the non-dominant eye. However, the recommended starting point for the ICD FlexFit Multifocal is to use distance center lenses in both eyes. But again, you have the flexibility to alter how you approach each patient. Over-refraction is always an important part in any contact lens, and especially a multifocal lens. The same rules that you apply for any multifocal lens would apply for the ICD FlexFit Multifocal. Let's look at pushing minus if we need to improve distance, pushing plus if we need to improve the near. If we increase the minus, does that affect the near? If we increase the plus, does that affect the distance? So all of the usual considerations. We also might explore, can we push more minus in the dominant eye, maybe more plus in the non-dominant eye? Does that affect the binocular function? Again, the usual multifocal rules apply. And let's see, with a simple power adjustment, if that provides all the focal distances the patient requires to achieve a successful outcome. Let's review some of the challenges of fitting scleral multifocal lenses and methods for optimizing the outcomes for patients. Experienced scleral lens practitioners will know that it's typical for the lenses to decenter temporal and inferior. The decentration is seen in that nasal superior thinning that results from the habitual inferior temporal positioning of the lenses. It seems clear that scleral shape is driving much of that temporal displacement, with the higher nasal elevation and lower temporal elevation. Then the inferior displacement may be driven by lid force and gravity. Another challenge in all multifocal contact lenses is that the line of sight is centered slightly nasal and a little bit superior. If our contact lenses center to the geometric axis, or in the case of sclerals, if they center inferior temporal, then the optic center of the lens will not line up over the visual axis and the patient's line of sight. Just as the visual axis is slightly nasal and superior of the geometric center, the pupil is similarly displaced, nasal and superior. For this reason, the ICD FlexFit allows for displacement of the optics. Therefore, regardless of the centration of the lens, the multifocal optics can be placed over the patient's line of sight. This incredible option allows the multifocal optics to be moved in any direction. One of the questions you might be asking yourself is, how much would we decenter the optics of the lenses to line up the multifocality over the patient's pupil and visual axis? How do you measure or guesstimate the displacement required? By performing topography over top of the lens, you're able to observe the multifocality of that anterior surface. Notice the blue center distance zone, then the green-yellow of the intermediate, then the orange-red of the near zone of the lens. Performing topography over our multifocal lenses tells us two very important and obvious things: where the multifocal is centered, as well as the power profile that the lens provides the patient. In this topographer, a contact lens displacement attribute is available that can tell us, based on the zones of the lens, the distance of displacement, in this case 0.56 millimeters, as well as the direction of displacement toward axis 207 degrees. With this important information, we can order a custom ICD FlexFit multifocal with displaced optics. We'll simply move the multifocality 0.56 millimeters in the complete opposite direction, 180 degrees opposite to where the lens presently is now. In this case, it's toward axis 207 degrees. We'll move it toward axis 27 degrees to center that multifocality over the patient's line of sight, which is the center of the topography. Here's topography over top of our new custom ICD FlexFit Multifocal with the displaced optics. What becomes obvious is that we've been able to move the multifocality of the lens over the patient's visual axis and line of sight in a much improved manner. Using topography over top of our contact lenses to understand their displacement is a way that we can very accurately determine how much to move the optics as well as what direction we need to move them. What if your topographer doesn't provide a tool to automate or measure the degree of displacement? What can you do? One of the ways you could approach this scenario is, again, do topography over top of your ICD FlexFit, whether it's a multifocal or symmetric spherical optic. Place your cursor where you believe it's centered to the optics of the lens. Often your topographer will provide a distance and angle from the line of sight, the center of the topography, to the position that you've placed the cursor. So this could be one method to approach the displacement, distance, and direction that you need to provide for the ICD FlexFit distributor. Another option is to create an annotation. In this case, we've drawn a circle around one of the obvious zones of the lens. The center of that circle has a cross. Then we'll click the cursor on top of that cross, and it will give us the distance and angle to that point. Users of the Medmont topographer have a contact lens displacement attribute that allows us to draw in that circle, and it will provide us the exact displacement in distance and an angle and display it on the screen for you. What if we desire to fit an ICD FlexFit multifocal lens, but topography isn't available? Well, we could estimate the lens position and direction of displacement. If you observe a small amount of lens decentration in relationship to the iris and the pupil, then move the optics 0.5 millimeters. If you see a more typical decentration of the scleral lens on eye, then move the optics 0.8 millimeters. Considering that scleral lenses typically position inferior temporal and our visual axis and pupil is generally superior nasal, let's err toward moving the lenses in a superior nasal direction, and it may be advisable to move the lens more rather than less. Let's take a moment and summarize all that we've discussed. How can we be successful with the ICD FlexFit Multifocal and its many options? The first consideration is attempt the best centration possible. That assures the optics will be well placed for the patient. For quality distance vision, provide a large enough distance zone diameter. The recommended starting point is approximately a 2 millimeter distance zone diameter. Build the ad appropriate for the pupil size. It doesn't help to have the ad kicking in at 5 millimeters if the patient's pupil is only 3 millimeters in normal illumination. As we discussed earlier, we always have to consider whether small modifications to the minus for distance, the plus for near, can that improve our patient outcome? Does it help to push more minus in the dominant or more plus in the non-dominant? Can we find a way to create the balance so the patient has good quality vision for all focal distances? If a simple modification to the distance or near will not provide us with the quality of vision that we require, then we'll look at altering the zone sizes. Additionally, increase the distance zone diameter when we need to improve the distance quality of vision. A helpful tip is to decrease the near zone diameter when the patient requires improvement of their near magnification. If the patient is struggling with distance, intermediate, or near vision, where possible, perform topography over the lenses. This may provide insight that displaced multifocal optics in the ICD lens could improve the patient outcome. The ICD FlexFit Multifocal offers you a comprehensive set of options to approach your presbyopic patients. For instance, the lens is available as a distance or near center optic. There's a wide parameter range and ad availability. You can control the distance zone, the intermediate zone, and the near zone, and provide displaced multifocal optics for your patients. For more information on the ICD FlexFit or the multifocal options, reach out to the Precision and Cardinal team. Thanks for your interest.